Welcome back, everyone. I hope you had a refreshing break. Our next session is actually going to be a panel discussion talking about international collaboration. So I encourage everyone to ask questions, and if you do want to ask questions on this one, the session name is Australia, Japan, Collaboration. So just make sure you're in that session if you want to ask questions on this panel. So the panellists include both researchers and entrepreneurs, and they're both from Australia and Japan, as the name suggests. So they're going to be exploring the opportunities and synergies available through the global collaboration in research and development and industrial commercialisation. So to grow us within the Asia-Pacific space sector and sustainably grow us. So I think that that's a really important point. So please welcome from the Australian Space Agency, Antoinette Daly, the Executive Director, Operations and Communications with Carla Griegous, who is the Executive Director, International and National Engagement. So now, and joining them as well, Akira Kasaka, Manager, International Relations at JAXA, Elisa Starkey, founder of Osius, Masatoshi Nakagaki, sorry, I'm going to pronounce that again. Masatoshi Nagasuki, who is also known as Masa, the co-founder and CEO of Space BD. Shinobu Doi, who's the manager of the Japanese experiment module at JAXA. And Dr. Sarah Pearce, who's the Deputy Director at CSIRO Astronomy and Space Science. Without further ado, I will now hand over to Annie.
Thank you so much, Caroline, for that introduction. And I also would like to start by acknowledging that we're meeting on many lands today. And for those that are in Australia, we pay our respects to the traditional owners of the lands and to those that are past, present and emerging. And I also extend our respects to any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islanders present today. I'm meeting on the Ghana lands. That's where the agency's headquarters is based. And my co-facilitator today is Carl, who is on the lands of the Gadigal of the Eora Nation. And with us, we're also joined on this panel by three wonderful experts from Japan. And I welcome you to this panel discussion today. As mentioned, Carl and I are both executive directors at the Australian Space Agency, and it's wonderful that Carl has been wonderfully supportive of diversity, and that's why I'm here co-hosting with him this session. We're very happy to be facilitating this session. It is such a wonderful time in the Australia-Japan relations. We're wonderful trusted partners with Japan and having signed a recent Memorandum of Cooperation. And as mentioned to Caroline, we are doing live questions from the audience, so please submit them and I will address them to our panel members as we go through. So to start off the session, I've actually asked each panel member to outline a little bit about who they are and their organisation, how their organisation relates to the Japan-Australia relationship and their experience of that relationship. So to get things started, I'm going to hand over to Carl, who will outline a little bit more about the Australian Space Agency's perspective on the relationship. Thanks, Carl.
Hello, thanks, Annie. Hello and konnichiwa to our friends. So thank you. I'm Carla Griegous. I'm the Executive Director for Engagement and Missions here in the agency. And my role is to work with and look after the relationships with international agencies, national organisations, the states and territories, and of course the relevant missions that we have with these stakeholders. And so, for example, the Moon to Mars mission, we're working up projects with our other international colleagues, and of course, we're looking at supporting the Hayabusa 2 mission here with Japan. So more specifically about Japan and our relationship, obviously, as we've heard from our previous speakers early on in the morning, Japan and Australia have a very, very long history, over 20 years of collaboration in many areas outside of space, but certainly in the space area. It's been segmented and it's been highlighted by a number of key activities. 1996, we were looking at supporting Japan in the automatic landing flight experiment test vehicle. We were looking at collaborating with Japan, as Dr. Hirashi mentioned earlier on, that it was in 2002 that the Tanegashima Space Centre successfully launched Australia's FedSat satellite. And 2010, we started the relationship around sample return with the Hayabusa return spacecraft, the Hayabusa 1 return spacecraft. And more importantly, beyond that, there's been a number of activities, including a high-altitude pseudo-satellite work and ballooning from the Northern Territory. As mentioned by several people as well too, recently in July this year, we signed a Memorandum of Cooperation with JAXA. And this was acknowledged by both Prime Ministers Abe and Morrison. And we hope to build on areas of space applications, technology, space environment utilisation, space science and exploration, and of course education and outreach, which is keenly important to both our nations. As mentioned before, Hayabusa 1 was in 2010, and Hayabusa 2 is now coming within the next few days. And again, highlighting that relationship, that deep relationship, that this is a significant and a proud moment for Japan and JAXA, with such a significant mission from the asteroid Ryugu. And we're pleased to be able to support both NASA and JAXA in this endeavour. So NASA is also participating in this project, of course, under JAXA's guidance and direction here. And we'll be monitoring keenly the manoeuvres over these last few days as it approaches. More and more importantly as well too, and recently we've started working with Japan on their Kibo module, the Asian Beneficial Challenge, and two specific programs that have been quite interesting for the Australian community over the last few months. And one of those was the Robotic Programming Challenge. And a shout out to Galen Vex, who's a small school in Wangaratta, for being able to participate in the challenge and fly robots on the International Space Station. And of course, with the next program in that area is the Seeds in Space. And so working with our partners, One Giant Leap, and the promotion of what will happen to the wattle as wattle seeds go up into the space station and then will be returned back to Earth and planted through schools throughout Australia. And so that's a fantastic opportunity and a fantastic underpinning of the collaboration areas that we're working on, broadly beyond missions, but also in creating that workforce of the future and that inspiration and that excitement around space. We're active members in the Asia-Pacific Regional Space Agency Forum, working with JAXA and our colleagues to advance space in the region. And JAXA is also extremely active, as we are, beginning to be in the International Space Exploration Coordination Group and the International Mars Exploration Working Group, again, participating in the Global Space Agency planning and collaboration activities. Japan is an important nation in space activities and exploration and has identified a growing importance on expanding commercial interest and activity in space. And I'm sure my colleagues, Masa from Space BD and Doi-san will undoubtedly talk about their plans in terms of commercialisation and the Kibo module. Dr. Hiroshi also mentioned JSpark and the new space-related business growth activities. And of course, Japan's venture financing industry is significantly active in space startups, and we're keen to see how that collaboration between our sectors, our startup sectors, can benefit each other, and keen to see that expansion of venture financing internationally. So in conclusion, in this area, Australia has a long heritage in space, and we have a significantly capable and broad economy, and one that is able to support a growing global space sector from the broader economy as well. It brings in many of the activities and many of the capabilities from advanced manufacturing through to agriculture, through to artificial intelligence and more. And as identified in our strategy, we're focusing on growing that space sector, bringing in that broader economy and collaborating with our international partners such as JAXA. We both, Japan and Australia, both acknowledge that the major push moving forward will be through industry-to-industry collaboration and researcher-to-researcher collaboration, and just bringing the two economies closer together. And with that, I think that's a great context for improving bilateral cooperation. Annie, back to you.
Thanks so much, Carl. Appreciate that very detailed outline of our activities. I might hand it over now to Kusaka-san, Manager of the International Relations Division at JAXA.
Yes, good morning. Thank you very much for Annie's time. So first of all, I'd like to express my appreciation for today's opportunity to talk about JAXA's space cooperation with Australia. Since the establishment of Australia Space Agency in 2018, we had discussions with ASA toward building a cooperative relationship between JAXA and ASA. And I am fully involved in the discussions about the discussion on the text of cooperation agreement. So very much pleased to we concluded MOC in July this year. Both JAXA and ASA are space agencies, but the characteristics, roles, and authorities of each organization are very different. JAXA is a kind of a traditional space agency, having its R&D capability within our agency. But ASA is very much a new type of space agency from our perspective. So I enjoyed the discussion, how we can describe our scheme of cooperation in the MOCs. Now, the conclusion of the MOC is the very meaningful to us, in the sense that the contact point in Australia that JAXA should look first toward the creation of cooperation in the space field has been identified. Previously, JAXA needed to contact each organization, but now the scheme has been changed. So JAXA is now having a great expectation for ASA to serve as a bridge to Australian organizations. As a next step in the conclusion of the MOC, JAXA would like to learn what kind of research and development activities are being carried out by various Australian organizations to further explore the cooperation opportunities. Opportunities like Australian Space Forum today are great chances to learn efficiently. This time it was held online, but I would like to visit Australia next time. We also hope that you will visit JAXA to deepen your understanding of our technological capabilities and research and development for the future. At the Japan and Australia Summit meeting held 2 days after the MOC signing ceremony, the establishment of cooperative relationship between both space agencies was taken up as a topic and welcomed by the two leaders. We would like to contribute from the space field to further deepening of the special strategic partnership between Japan and Australia. In addition to deepening and expanding our bilateral cooperative relationship between Japan and Australia, we would like to lead the development of space activities in the entire Asian Pacific region together as advanced nations in this region. This region accounts for 60% of the world's population and expected to account for 50% of the world's GDP in the next few years. In recent years, in South Asian and Middle Eastern countries, there is an increasing momentum to utilize space technology for socio-economic development, and there is a movement to launch a national space policy and establish a new space agency. As key players of the Asian Pacific region, we look forward to working together with you for the development of space activities in the whole Asian Pacific region. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Kasaka-san, for outlining that and also highlighting a lot about our deepening strategic alignment between both organisations. I most certainly look forward to a time in the future where we can do more international visits But for now, it's very lovely to be able to have some of your JAXA colleagues in Australia and being part of a wonderful joint mission. I might now hand over to Alyssa Starkey, founder of a small business and a small startup, Ausis. Alyssa, can I hand over to you to outline a little bit more about your organisation?
Thanks, Annie. So hello, my name is Alyssa Starkey. I'm the founder and applied science lead at OCS, based in Brisbane, Australia. So we aim to revolutionise the way businesses measure, monitor and manage the environment. And we really thrive on giving our customers the competitive edge by solving advanced analytical problems using space-based data to improve decisions here on Earth. So I founded OSIUS in 2014 to fuse Earth observation technology, environmental science and artificial intelligence to enable our customers to discover the past, predict future trends and seize opportunities today. We've analysed millions of square kilometres of the Earth's surface and deployed our Earth observation analytics solutions for some of the world's largest energy, resource and agricultural companies in the world. So we've developed our analytics engine, Naxia, to create this new intelligence about our environment to deliver new information across a range of applications. We're data agnostic, so we can draw on a range of satellite technologies to ensure fit-for-purpose solutions are implemented and deliver results at an appropriate spatial and temporal scale. Right now, we are helping our customers in utilities, mining, oil and gas and agribusiness to gain market insights and improve community outcomes and lower risks to operating over large areas or difficult to access landscapes. To date, our collaboration with Japan has been, I would say, at a distance, but understated. There are some critical satellite technologies that have been developed by JAXA in particular that over the last few decades that have been made available to Australia that we are really grateful for. And OSIUS has directly leveraged these already existing access to satellite technology. These, of course, include Himawari, but dating back to ALOS and ASTA sensors as well. And this means that we've been able to answer critical questions on mineral exploration, biomass, and also even being able to access sites with up-to-date knowledge on rainfall, weather patterns, and fire and emergency scenarios, all from just these few handful of technologies. So I'm really excited to see what can be done when we work together on dedicated missions together. With the signed Memorandum of Cooperation, I know that we're keen to leverage this agreement to advance commercial solutions globally based on collaborative supply chain capabilities, particularly in the analytics section, so that we can run and build out capabilities all based from our Asia Pacific region. We're seeing some really exciting startups and small businesses that are growing massively. I was lucky enough to be a part of a forum last week on the Asia Pacific Regional Space Forum and got to meet some amazing startups there through Astroscale and Umatron and Space BD participating today. And of course, the Australian space startup landscape is really exciting as well. So it's a really exciting time ahead and very timely that these agreements are in place for us to all benefit from.
Thank you so much, Alyssa, for outlining that. And it's wonderful to see a startup business really being able to capitalise and hopefully go from strength to strength under the new doors that are being opened. I'll now hand it over to Masa-san, who's the co-founder and CEO of Space BD.
Thanks, Annie. Good morning, everyone. I'm Masa Nagasaki, a co-founder of Space BD and CEO of Space BD Inc. from Japan. So thanks very much for the kind invitation to the panel. I'm very happy to participate because to me, Australia is the second home country to me, where I used to live in the city of Perth for almost 2 years. At that time, I was in iron ore mining industry. So it's unfortunate to be there in Adelaide, but everybody please stay safe. And I look forward to seeing you in person next time. So our company Space BD does is creation of commercial businesses in space, with the ambition of making space into a thriving and commercial industry. The BD is the abbreviation for the business development, and we exactly focus on the business development in the space industry. I co-founded this company almost 3 years ago. Among others, our key business domain is launch services for micro and nano satellites. Through RFPs, Space BD was selected as the official commercial service provider for four services historically operated by JAXA, which includes satellite deployment from Japanese Kibo module on the ISS and Kibo external platform utilization, and also H2A and H3 large launch vehicle rideshare opportunities, and also satellite deployment from the external platform to the next generation ISS resupply vehicle called HTVX. Till today, we've got almost 40 contracts for our launch service, with our launch services, both from international and domestic in Japan. I'm honored to tell you our first international client is Australian organization called QUAVA, based at the University of Sydney. Also, we are working together with Curtin University in Western Australia for their satellite launch from the Kibo module, which is, I'm quite honored as well to tell you that which is the first satellite manufactured in WA. Thank you. Back to Annie.
Thank you so much, Masa-san, for that outline there. And it's wonderful for you to have your first client with QUAVA, a wonderful organisation here in Australia. And I hope to be able to see you in person sometime soon in Adelaide, since this country is a second home to you. I will now hand over to Doi-san, who's the manager for the Japanese Experiment Module Utilization Center. Over to you, Doi-san.
Okay, thank you very much for this opportunity to join the panel. I'm Shinobu Doi from JAXA. I'm manager for the promoting the utilization of the Kibo module in the area of the commercial utilization and the collaborative utilization in the Asian Pacific regions. And please remember that Kibo is the name of the Japanese module in the ISS and means hope in Japanese. This name should be the good name in this current situation. And more than 10 years has passed since the Kibo assembly completed and the actual utilization started. But recently, the utilization in low Earth orbit has drastically changed. In December 2019, the government of Japan devised the basic plan on the space policy to promote the low Earth orbit utilization by the private sectors, ISS and beyond. Also, the government of Japan announced its participation in the Artemis program of lunar exploration, including the Gateway in July 2020. In response to those changes, JAXA updated the Kibo utilization strategy to make space environment utilization in LEO, low Earth orbit, a part of human social economy activities by increasingly utilizing Kibo through 2030. JAXA defined three promotional areas to realize this strategy. First one is to contribute the national research. The second is to promote the acquisition of technologies for longer duration human exploration beyond LEO. And third, to promote open innovation for business use or commercial use. From the international collaborations perspective, Carl-san mentioned, the JAXA has been leading the Kibo ABC initiative, which is a collaborative program established under the Asian Pacific Region Space Agency Forum. And Australia Space Agency participated in the Kibo ABC last year, and joined a multilateral project such as the Kibo Robot Programming Challenge. The second one is the Asian Hub in Space. Actually, when I attended the previous forum at the 9th Australian Space Forum there last year, I learned that I learned a lot. For example, the Australia Space Agency is taking the same approach as JAXA is now doing. I mean, to encourage the space sectors for the space activities in LEO and beyond. So through the discussions in this panel, I'm also looking forward to seeing how the Australia and Japan will collaborate on the LEO and beyond in future. Thank you very much. And back to you, Annie.
Thank you so much, Doi-san, for that outline. It's definitely an exciting time, and it's very grateful to have your support going forward. I will hand over now to Dr. Sarah Pearce, who has got one title, which is the Deputy Director of the CSIRO Astronomy and Space Science, but is also Executive of the Year at the recent Space Connect Awards. So over to you, Sarah.
Thank you very much, Annie. So I'm Sarah Pearce. I run the space program at CSIRO, Australia's National Science Agency. And as you would expect, CSIRO collaborates broadly with Japanese government agencies, universities, research organizations, and industry. And we have done so for nearly 40 years. For example, we publish more than 100 co-authored publications with Japanese researchers every year. And we have 10 MOUs with Japanese organizations. Dr. Yamakawa mentioned some of this work in his talk earlier, for example, our collaborations on VLBI. But I had no idea how broadly we collaborate with Japan on space. When I asked for some background information for this talk across the organization, I got back a list with 104 bullet points on CSIRO's work with Japan in the space sector. Fortunately for you, I'm not going to go through all 104, but I did want to discuss a few of these key collaborations. So to start with, let's go back to 2015 to midnight just outside Alice Springs, where a gossamer thin balloon is being prepared to lift a JAXA payload, which will measure the fast spinning Vela pulsar. And as Dr. Yamakawa mentioned earlier, CSIRO facilitates access to the NASA-owned Alice Springs Scientific Balloon Launching Station in Northern Territory. We contract UNSW to run these balloon launches, and we've supported campaigns for JAXA in 2015 and 2018. An interesting fact I found out about these campaigns is that one of the most expensive aspects is the supply of helium that lifts the payloads to altitudes of 35 to 40 kilometers above the Earth. Helium supplies worldwide are limited, and bringing large quantities into the country is very expensive. Surprisingly, outside Alice Springs and co-located with the balloon launching station, there's a large quantity of World War II era gas cylinders of helium. So being able to supply JAXA with this excess helium helps to simplify the ballooning operations and significantly reduce the cost. We've been honoured to support JAXA with their balloon launches and look forward to the next campaign in 2022, which will fly 4 missions. We also do a lot of work with Japan on Earth observation, using Japanese satellite data to map forests in Tasmania, for ocean monitoring, and working with the Japan Meteorological Agency on measuring greenhouse gases. One of our long-standing collaborations with JAXA has been on the Sentinel Asia disaster monitoring system. Sentinel Asia stems from CSIRO's Sentinel Hotspots bushfire tracking project, which we developed in the early 2000s and is now operated by Geoscience Australia. JAXA has led the rollout and ongoing operation of Sentinel Asia with over 15 member countries, and it now tracks rainfall, identifies wildfire hotspots, and provides satellite data to support disaster management activities right across the Asia-Pacific region. In deep space, we've all been thrilled to see the success of the Hayabusa missions. CSIRO supports these missions through our operations of the Canberra Deep Space Communication Complex on behalf of NASA's Deep Space Network. And for Hayabusa 2, We've provided two-way command, control and telemetry services to JAXA through the entire mission starting in 2014. And perhaps most importantly, we successfully provided communications for the two mission-critical sample collections in February and July last year. Looking to the future, next year we'll see the start of construction for the Square Kilometre Array, the first mega science project to be hosted in Australia. The SKA will build 130,000 low-frequency antennas across 65 kilometres of desert in Western Australia at CSIRO's Murchison Radio Astronomy Observatory. Together, these antennas will look back in time to the cosmic dawn, just after the Big Bang, when the first stars and galaxies started to shine. Japan's one of the 15 countries involved in this international project. Perhaps the most challenging aspect of SKA is bringing together the different parts of the system, from the antennas being built in Italy and India, through the high-speed digital processing being developed in Australia and the Netherlands, to the software systems led by the UK that will process and store hundreds of petabytes of data a year. CSIRO is going to lead this integration and verification work in Australia, but we will be joined in this critical area by the National Astronomy Observatory of Japan, NAOJ. And in fact, we've already hosted Japanese engineers at CSIRO as we design and plan for the SKA. So with this, I think the future of our collaboration between Japan and CSIRO is very bright, and we look forward to building on our 40 years of working together in space. Thanks, Annie.
Thanks so much, Sarah, and amazing that you can have 104 areas of collaboration. I hope over the next 10 years we can see that triple in size. It's wonderful to see. Just a reminder to those that are watching the stream that if you'd like to send through some questions, we're going to get into the facilitated audience questions very shortly. But to start this off, I'm going to ask each of our panel members to provide one or two key points on this important question. So what are the key technology areas that Australia and Japan can collaborate on? And if I can keep you to 1 to 2 points, that would be great. Starting over with Carl.
Thanks, Annie. It's hard to limit it to actually 1 to 2 points. There's a number of collaboration areas, obviously, that would be really quite key for us. And again, I stress that there's an opportunity here for the broader economy. So I think that there are many that come to mind. So just rattling them off would be artificial intelligence, robotics, as we mentioned, Earth observation and position navigation and timing for QZSS, the Himawari, the MOS satellites, etc. And more recently as well, too, I think there's a keen interest in supporting human spaceflight, or Japan's efforts in that, in the space life sciences area. And so we know that there's a keen interest in nutrition and potentially some other aspects of supporting that particular dimension. And across everything, of course, there's advanced manufacturing and many, many others, including energy. Hydrogen and supporting of solar, etc., for the uses in space. I know I've rattled off more than 1 or 2 points, so I apologise to my colleagues, but I will stop there.
Oh, thank you so much for that. Yes, you have listed about 10 or 15 of them, but by all means, if anybody wants to add a little bit further to it. Kasaka-san?
Yes, I would like to point out the two areas for potential cooperation. I feel that the use of satellite positioning and space exploration have great potential for future cooperation. As introduced in the keynote speech by President Yamakawa-san, a demonstration experiment on the automatic driving of agricultural machine, as well as automobiles, are being conducted using positioning signals from Japan's QZSS. This QZSS satellite has entered into the full-scale operation phase from 2 years ago, and the continent of Australia is under the special orbit of QZSS. That means the QZSS is flying over your continent. So you can use the positioning signals from QZSS. It will reinforce the GPS signals, which enable highly accurate positioning and navigation. So we are now under the pandemic situation. We recognize the importance and the advantage of space technology. For example, under the pandemic situation, people cannot move. So our movement is restricted, but the goods and information should be transferred. In this sense, the space technology can contribute to realize such a movement of information and goods. By using the satellite navigation positioning system enables the ultra high precision positioning in the centimeter range. So we can use this signal to the automation of the freight transportation by autonomous trucks. That means in the future, we can realize the automation of logistics. The second point, space exploration, there would be a much potential for cooperation. So as President Yamakawa-san mentioned, the activities on the celestial bodies with gravity, including the moon, are more likely to utilize ground technology than those activities in low Earth orbit with microgravity, such as space station. The JAXA has been conducting a collaborating activity with industry partner at the JAXA's Space Exploration Innovation Hub Center. As Yamakawa-san introduced, the industry partners are coming from the space industry as well as the non-space industries, such as construction companies and toy company, agricultural company, and cosmetic companies, etc. As far as I know, in Australia, there are many world-class ground technologies, such as coal mining technology, which might be used in space exploration. International space exploration will continue for more than several decades, and that will become a long-term journey. So it is expected that such specialty of each country will contribute to realize the human global exploration to the moon and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kosaka-san, for that outline. Alyssa, from a business perspective, what do you see are the key technology areas that Australia and Japan can collaborate on?
Yes, it's interesting because my view is that from an AI and EO perspective, there's a real opportunity from a rapid R&D perspective to help push forward growth of emerging businesses to be able to validate performance of AI algorithms and products and services. And so I think to be able to collaborate, given that there's a real push for small satellite development happening at a faster pace, and from a business perspective, we're seeing really fast turnaround required between research and development and commercialisation of products. So I think there's an opportunity to be able to look at calibration and validation sites for small satellite data and algorithm performance testing, as well as test facilities in space as well. So being able to test different sensors before they go into full launch mode, and also being, I think, our physical locations of our two countries is quite advantageous, and it could be an opportunity to really test products and services across a wide range of environments by being able to have areas on both of our countries where we can trial new products. So that's my thoughts there.
Thank you very much, Alyssa. And it's interesting to see that you're mentioning that there's a faster pace and an expectation of faster turnaround. So it's good to hear that perspective. I'll hand over now to Masa-san, co-founder and CEO of Space BD, for your thoughts on this topic.
Okay, thanks, Annie. I would say every possible area, not only specifically limited to technology areas, every area we can work together. I'm sorry, I'm greedy man, so I'm sorry, Annie. And from my experience and understanding, Australia and Japan have a perfect match for collaboration in terms of technological capability match differences, and also a type of demands, as well as almost no time difference, and even orbital inclination wise as well. Japan historically has developed access to the space, including the Japanese Kibo module on the ISS, while Australia has developed diversified technologies to meet an inevitable demand in the vast land to be utilized for the space use. The important thing is we should share the technology and demand to avoid double effort in order to maximize mutual benefit and efficiency. And continuous step-by-step approach is essential in the space industry. So as such, I believe that we shall be good partners collaborating together in every possible area. Thank you, Annie.
Masa-san, that was very interesting and very thoughtful, particularly around the idea of sharing so that we can capitalize rather than duplicate efforts. And I wholeheartedly agree with you. Doi-san, your thoughts on the key technology opportunities that Australia and Japan can collaborate?
Okay, thank you. Actually, the Kibo has a very unique capability to conduct the in-orbit experiment or demonstration on the Kibo exposed facility, utilizing the ICEP, which means the IVA replaceable small exposed experiment platform, which is a hardware adapter to conduct to the exposed facility. And actually, you can launch your hardware, for example, the CubeSat size unit as a pressurized cargo and attach it on the ICEP inside the Kibo module by crew. And then they robotically bring out the ICEP with your hardware through the airlock, and then they finally attach to the Kibo exposed facility for your in-orbit technical demonstration outside. Very easy to use capability for the Kibo module. And I understand the SA is going to encourage the private sectors or researchers to develop necessary technologies for human spaceflight exploration towards the moon and beyond. So one of the collaborative approaches I would like to propose is that SA, Australia Space Agency, and JAXA serve as a facilitator for the businesses and researchers in Australia to utilize the ICEP for the on-orbit technical, in-orbit technical demonstration for the moon and beyond. They actually utilizing the servicing the ICEP is already transferred to the Space BD. So you can contact the Space BD for this to utilize this capability. That is my one proposal for this topic. Thank you.
Doi-san, thank you so much. And I can speak for everyone that the outcomes of work for Kibo is most certainly extremely exciting and a great collaboration opportunity. And I acknowledge your comment around working a lot stronger between the South Australian government, who released their state strategy today, the Australian Space Agency, and with JAXA. So we look forward to continuing that dialogue. Sarah, over to you to finalise this question.
Yeah, and in fact, my answer is going to be along similar lines to Doi-san. So CSIRO is developing space technologies across a wide range of our area of expertise, from advanced minerals through big data to advanced materials to mineral resources mapping. But over the next couple of years, we are especially looking through our Space Future Science program to gain flight heritage for some of these key technologies. And I think this is a great opportunity to collaborate with Japan. So as an example, our OptoCube project is developing a lab in a cube testing platform, which will let human cells, specifically bone cells in this case, be studied on the ISS. And the OptoCube's unique because it uses light as the only stimulus to control the cells and detect the results. So the experiments can be completely contactless. Other technologies might include our space-related food projects, growing foods in space, protecting packaged foods from long-term radiation, and some of our materials activities like demonstrating radiation-shielded materials. So we're very enthusiastic to discuss these opportunities and the opportunities of the Kibo platform specifically with our Japanese colleagues.
Sarah, thank you so much for outlining that. And I could do a call and just list all the areas, because there was most certainly exciting opportunities there. But I do see that there's a lot of opportunity, and it seems like we've got opportunities across each of the 7 key priorities areas in the Australian Civil Space Strategy. So that's a wonderful initiative to go forward. Now, I do have questions that are coming through from the audience, and I will start to allocate them. And I acknowledge that we've got a few in the system already. So the first ones I will facilitate and then open it up more broadly again. So the first question is for Masa-san, and that's a question around venture capital. How do we promote cross-venture funding visibility across Japan and Australia?
Okay, I've got 2 ideas for that. One is indirect way and another is direct way. So simply, I think it will come naturally if the collaboration between Australia and Japan is further promoted. For example, Space BD with Japanese investment can expand its business in Australia, utilizing Australian technologies, which is missing in Japan. That is like a simple case, indirect case. And another one is direct way, could be better or stronger. We could establish the fund jointly invested by Australia and Japan. It's valuable for example, for Australian startups to secure the Japanese launch opportunities for their testing, including, as Doi-san said before, the iShip on the Kibo is the key technology for the for demonstration for the Australian startup in cheapest and quicker manner for the testing and to go to the next step. Or of course, it's vice versa. It's valuable for us, Japanese startups, to accelerate the business in Australia, and then consequently, it's gonna be strengthen the relationship between Australia and Japan. For such cross-venture funding, the main hurdles might be the languages and business custom. So personally, as I said, I used to live in Perth, Australia, and also lab in Australia, and also Space BD is already doing business with Australia. So I'm more than happy if there is business, I'm more than happy to open the branch in Australia to facilitate this funding and the collaboration between Australian startups and Japanese startups.
So I think the door has been opened there. Thank you so much, Masa-san. Kasaka-san, we've recently signed a Memorandum of Cooperation, and we've also joint members of the Artemis Accords. What would be the next steps for Australia and Japan to build on these instruments?
Thank you very much for the question. So now we have a scheme prescribed in the MOC. How to activate the discussion is the next step for us. So we understand that there are many engineers and researchers in both nations to have the connection between us. However, there remain many engineers and researchers do not have a connection each other. So one thing both space agencies should do is to encourage them to start to start to dialogue each other. Visiting each other and having a discussion would be the first step to identify the common interest. So that's my answers.
Thanks so much, Kasaka-san. Doi-san, you've already outlined a little bit about the KIBO for the Asian Benefit Challenge. KIBO really offers us a broader platform for research. Could you discuss some of the key areas of research that JAXA would like to see collaboration in more detail?
Okay, thank you very much for your question. Actually, the goal, as I mentioned, that the goal of the KIBO ABC initiative is to utilize and to share the outcomes of the ISS KIBO in the Asian Pacific region's countries. And we do this in actually take 2 steps from the multilateral collaboration to the bilateral collaboration. And I'd like to introduce the JAXA's important strategy. As I mentioned, one of the 3 prioritized strategic areas is to contribute the national research, which is to be beneficial to our life, humankind on the ground. And for example, the drug design support research to create a high quality protein crystal inside the KIBO module. And second one is innovative material research using a containerless processing, electrostatic levitation device. And third one is health and longevity research with mice in microgravity and artificial gravity environment inside KIBO module by sharing the mice sample. And since the Australian Space Agency already started the multilateral collaboration with JAXA, such as KIBO Robot Programming Challenge and the Asian Hub in Space. So I'd like to introduce those 3 key areas for the potential bilateral collaboration as a next step. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Doi-san, for outlining that. Sarah, you've already given us a little bit of an outline of some of the activities with CSIRO. Can you give us some further examples where CSIRO would like to commercialize research with our Japanese colleagues?
Yeah, look, I'd like to talk a little bit about a particular Earth observation application. So I spoke already about some of the Earth observation work we do with Japan, but one area that we're currently building on at the moment is called the EASY Hub, which is a platform for Earth observation data analytics based on Open Data Cube technology. And we're doing this in many areas jointly with Geoscience Australia. We're using EASY to help businesses grow their Earth observation capabilities and to supply CSIRO science as a service to local, regional and global end users. We've already had significant discussions in areas including the US, Chile and Vietnam. But this is an area where we'd be very keen to work with our Japanese collaborators to see how the EASY Hub could help Japanese industry and government make more effective use of Earth observation data.
Definitely a theme that we're seeing through this panel already is on Earth observation and the opportunities there. Alyssa, carrying on that conversation, how do you think Australia and Japan can foster and strengthen collaboration with new and emerging small businesses?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Annie. I think it's all about inclusivity of small businesses and emerging businesses across the supply chain, and knowing that we're an important part of the innovation landscape. We have been actively participating across the ecosystem currently and are pushing further into that every year, from the R&D stage right through to that commercialisation stage. So Masa-san also mentioned this too, in that there are opportunities everywhere to collaborate and strengthen with small business. So in NASA we've seen in North America and ESA in Europe, we've seen great examples of really positive collaboration with small business and engagement in the Earth observation sector. And we often notice that some of these opportunities in being able to work closely with these agencies to deploy solutions for commercial applications are often limited to those regions, and so are a bit harder for Australian startups and Japanese startups and those in the Asia Pacific region to participate in such activities. And we understand that because they're supported by their public funding from those regions. So there is a great opportunity for Australia to seek joint ventures with Asia Pacific space agencies such as JAXA to build an alliance here in our region that can certainly seek to foster the growth and encouragement of innovation and commercialisation of Earth observation, inclusive of small business innovators right here. And a part of that also, a bit of a trend we're seeing is modernisation of collaboration frameworks and agreements, so to allow small business to retain ownership and access to IP, among other areas of modernising the procurement and contract side. And I think the changing innovation landscape is driving this. And over the past 5 years, we've definitely seen a dramatic shift in the business sector, changing their attitudes to adopting new technologies and being able to really encourage that growth on a market by market basis. So I think it's really important to consider all these aspects in establishing government-supported vehicles for collaboration that encourage growth, because we're going to notice it the most at the small business and seeing the many businesses grow across our region. It would be great to be that powerhouse right here in the Asia Pacific region.
That was so wonderful to hear that. I'll just get you to also make a comment about the collaboration on Artemis, as Japan and Australia are both founding members. Where do we start?
Great question. And so firstly, yes, absolutely. Artemis is something which has happened recently, and Japan and Australia were part of the Artemis 8, as the US has called it. But again, just establishing that the Artemis Accords outline a practical set of principles to guide space exploration cooperation among the nations, and it's consistent with our the Outer Space Treaty of '67. And aims to increase the safety of operations, reduce the uncertainty, and promote the sustainable and beneficial use of space. With the Artemis partnerships that are coming through, it is all about that next step of exploration, space exploration, and international partnerships absolutely are critical in these areas. We've been focused very much as a space agency, the Australian Space Agency, on industry collaboration, and that's where we really do promote a lot of the capabilities and the technologies that could feed into the Artemis program itself. The Moon to Mars program, as mentioned by our deputy head earlier on in the conference, is a classic example of that, where we're working with Australian industry to start to help them build on their capabilities with organisations and with countries like Japan. And so we're looking at our demonstrators, which is the feasibility grants that have just opened up recently, and some of those could potentially overlap with some of the materials and some of the strategies that Masa and Doi-san were mentioning earlier. The supply chain capability grants of the first round is in assessment at the moment as well too, looking right across those broader areas of plugging into some of the bigger Japan industry collaborators with JAXA across manufacturing components and robotics and artificial intelligence. How can we essentially look at building up that awareness and that capability that Alyssa was talking about, and then introducing and opening those particular doors again that Kasaka-san was talking about, and making those introductions so that those organizations themselves can start working together. And the larger missions that JAXA is working on, it would be fantastic to see the manufacturing, the advanced manufacturing, the position navigation and timing, the autonomous areas that Kasaka-san was mentioning, working their way through into, say, the Toyota's plans and JAXA's plans for the next generation lunar cruisers. Of course, Japan is very, very keen and very active in the gateway. And so there are many technologies there across life support systems, energy systems, waste management, that communications as well too, that potentially could be elements that the Australian economy and the Australian industry can collaborate on. And then, of course, down onto the lunar surface, which ultimately is the goal of Artemis for the first woman and the next man to go into the moon and then beyond. I think Japan's got some really interesting areas as well too in terms of industry collaboration that they are very much promoting. Tansa was mentioned with the dual utilization strategies, again, a commercial-based program, and JSpark. So I think bringing those elements together, there are many problems that Artemis needs to solve. And as part of the Artemis approach, when we go towards the moon, that's a very aggressive timetable to meet that by 2024 and beyond as well too, as the sustainable human presence then will continue. And so I think in terms of identifying where JAXA is operating in those specific plans and marrying those with our own capabilities and desires as well, I think there's a fruitful opportunity there for both Japan and Australia to work on many Artemis component areas of collaboration. Thanks, Annie.
Thank you so much, Carl, for outlining that. Now, we do have questions and I've got questions that have come around the inspiration part and the youth engagement and future workforce development. So both Rami, Josh, Jess and Graham have kind of asked about opportunities for student collaboration and youth workshops and opportunities to exchange information for the younger generations. I might start on this one. I know that most of the panel members can answer this question, but I might start with Masa-san. Do you want to outline a little bit about what Space BD does?
Yes, thank you, Annie. Actually, the space is, I'm always telling people that space is the symbol of the cutting edge technologies, but as well as the symbol of the dream and challenge. So actually, it's good theme for the younger generation to challenge in terms of technology wise or business development wise, but space is a good theme for the younger generation. As an example, actually, my background, I studied education in the university. Maybe my career is a bit unique, and using that, Space BD has developed the training, the educational program together with JAXA, as Carl-san said, kindly said, the JSpark program, and we have developed the training method and assessment utilizing the astronaut training, which JAXA and NASA and ESA has development for a decade. So it's not. I'm not saying that every student is gonna be becoming astronaut, but it's a good way to utilize how the astronauts collaborating in the different culture from the different countries, or in very stressed. It's a difficult atmosphere in the very close and limited area on the ISS. So this is the I wanted to show our example. Thanks, Annie.
Thanks so much, Masa-san. Sarah, I'm sure CSIRO has got a lot of activities in this space.
Yes, so very keen, as you know, on the kind of inspiring side and on the education part. On the inspiring aspect, I mentioned earlier that Japan and Australia will be jointly working together on the Square Kilometre Array, which will be the first time that Australia has hosted one of these giant international science projects. And I know that from the talks I give in schools and elsewhere, that people are incredibly inspired by astronomy and space. And so I think that over the next kind of 8 years as we construct the SKA, and then hopefully the next kind of 20 or 30 years as we operate it, we can continue then to be partners and to inspire students and the public more generally with both Australia and Japan's role in this kind of large-scale project.
Thanks so much, Sarah, and apologies for the audience. I think you can see my chat with the panel members, so apologies for that. The next questions relate around about, the next question. I was just going to say, from the Australian Space Agency's point of view, we have Inspire as one of our 4 key pillars, and the Inspire pillar is currently being worked on by about 9 graduates in the Department of Industry, and it's very clear that collaboration, including internship opportunities, is very much a focal point for what the industry would like to see. So it's definitely something that the Australian Space Agency is pursuing and considering, and we're looking forward to be able to talk more broadly with the industry about what that Inspire roadmap might look like. So moving on to some of the other questions that are coming through, I have a question for Kasaka-san from Gary, and Gary asks, what comments would Japan like to make about the experiences Australia can learn from your relationship with the United States?
Thank you very much for your question. Question is that what does Japan learn from the cooperation with the United States? Is that correct?
Correct. So the question is there any lessons learned that Australia can learn from your relationship with the United States?
Thank you very much. Very wonderful question to me. During my 30 years career at JAXA, I have been involved in the space station program more than 15 years. So my major counterpart have been NASA colleagues working for space station program. So during the 1990s, JAXA was a small brother among the space station partners. But after accomplishing our responsibility to providing the space station Japanese module as committed and providing the cargo transportation service as committed, I feel that the Japan has been accumulating the trust from the other partners. So the most important thing for me is that very seriously do our tasks as committed. It's a quite important thing to getting the become reliable partners. As for the cooperation with Australia, we already has many long years experiences. So I believe that we already established such a trust relationship, but we would like to further explore our reliable partnership. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that answer. I know that lots of people are very interested in sharing experiences across countries, and we're looking forward to continuing our collaboration through the Artemis Accords. I can see that there's a very popular question on the board, which very much indicates that a lot of our discussion has been about government to government collaboration, and also around the opportunities potentially in the university sector. And the question comes from that is, are there anything in particular that we can do, that organisations can do to really help to strengthen the business collaboration opportunities? So business to business capabilities. And I think in this case, I might throw over to Alyssa and Masa-san to answer that. So Alyssa, do you have any thoughts on how we can improve more greater business to business opportunities?
Yes, absolutely. It's a fantastic question. I think there's something that is again understated and underrated is the capability of business that exists already in being able to innovate and leverage technology. And I think there are a range of major businesses out there that have already built their flight heritage. They've already well established in the ecosystem, and there's a lot of opportunity to leverage capability from existing large players in our space ecosystem, and to be able to collaborate to produce new capabilities, bring on board the technologies developed by innovative small business and innovative large business to answer some really critical questions. I think it's something that is very understated around the level and incredible achievements made by businesses to solve problems already. We are very used to having to work in very fast timeframes and having to deploy really quickly. So I think there's a lot there that can be leveraged from all of our collective experience in being able to rapidly move our whole ecosystem forward by engaging across the whole supply chain, from established large companies right through to the smaller companies as well. And I actually get really excited about what could be achieved if not only small business and large business can work together, but our regions can work together as well. There are some really exciting businesses that I see in Japan. There's some really exciting businesses that are already operating here in Australia. And that I think to discount that as an opportunity for growth would be very sad to see. So I think it's really actually critical to keep everyone's minds open about where that collaboration and where that innovation can come from.
Thanks, Alyssa. Masa-san, do you have anything further to add to that?
Yeah, I totally agree with what Alyssa said. Yeah, I totally agree with her. So actually, to be honest, nobody has the clear answer how to do profitable and sustainable business in space. So it's challenging, but that's what attracted me to the space arena. So again, yes, collaboration and to pursue the mutual benefit, avoiding double effort, and that is a key, I think.
Can I just jump back in? That's the other big one, is that duplication. I think we're hitting a world where no one can afford to be duplicating efforts, and that being from government across to industry, industry across to government, and region to region. So I think that's a really critical point there, Masa, and I totally agree.
Thank you. I'm conscious that we're getting through to the final 5 minutes of this session. So I'm going to ask the panel to give me their 1 or 2 quick points on where you see the major opportunities over the next 5 to 10 years for engagement between Australia and Japan. On this one, I will hand over to Doi-san to commence this discussion. Doi-san, you're still on mute.
Sorry. As I mentioned, that Kibo module is a huge science laboratory in space to provide various capabilities inside and outside. So, and I understand that it is very important to share the understanding the capability of the Kibo module as a first step. So JAXA would like to propose to hold a kind of a Kibo utilization symposium in Australia to share these the aspect. I mean, what kind of benefits are brought to the humankind on Earth from these activities or utilization. And the second important aspect is what kind of outcomes are expected to expand the human activities from the LEO to the moon and beyond. So that is my proposal as a first step to expand our collaboration in future.
Thank you so much, Doi-san. I appreciate that. I might hand over then to Kasaka-san for that final question. What do you see are the major opportunities over the next 5 to 10 years for Australia?
Thank you very much. So next to 5 and 10 and for further future, we will have a much very potential. One project named MMX, Martian Moon Exploration, will travel to the Martian Moon and will go back to Earth late 2020s, 29, 2030, around that. So there would be another chance for collaborating with Australia. So and I'd like to add one thing relating to regional cooperation. As I said at the first statement, as leaders of Asian Pacific region, Japan and Australia should lead the space development activities, development of space activity in this region. Under the APR South Asian Pacific Space Agency Forum, we have many initiatives. Among them, there is an initiative related to a space policy and law initiative. So not only the technical initiative, but also such kind of social science initiative we are now conducting. One of the initiative, National Space Legislation Initiative, undergoing is having 9 country members, including Australia. So this initiative aims to exchange the information about the space policy of each nation on what field each nation has given emphasis on. So it will enable to further deepen the understanding of each nation's policy, will lead to the further cooperative at the policy level as well. So we hope, I myself serving as executive secretary of APR South, so I hope Australian Space Agency will continue taking the leading role to contribute to such kind of initiatives. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kasaka-san. I'm very apologetic to our panel members. I will need to wrap it up at this point just because of the timing for an online virtual forum. Carl, do you have any last comments from the agency's perspective on this topic?
I do, Annie, and thank you for the quick word here. I agree with everything that's been said. Lots of opportunities coming through in the next 5 to 10 years across technology, research, policy, as has been mentioned. But I think the opportunity here is for us to bring our industry partners together. And building on a lot of those comments that have come through, I look forward to working with Japan to bring our industries closer together for the next 5 to 10 years and beyond, and continue to work on those missions and also research and just growing the space economy. Thanks, Annie.
Thanks so much, Carl. And thank you to our panel members, and apologies. We were just getting into the fun part of the session there. Appreciate your time and your energies, particularly to those that have joined us from Japan, and for the research in the small business sectors as well. I'll now hand over back to the Sydney studio.
Thank you so much, Annie. That was a really interesting discussion, and I appreciate your time and Carl and the entire panel for joining us with that. And also to our participants watching from wherever you are, loads of really interesting questions, which I think just helps facilitate that discussion and kind of shows the level of engagement that that collaboration between Australia and Japan actually brings.